Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Talk, our campus weekly video series where we discuss relationships, empathy, advocacy, and life. All of our episodes are pre-recorded and released every Tuesday at 5 p.m. So thanks for tuning in. This week, our episode is featuring a relevant issue, something that's happening right now and is kind of our guilty pleasure that we're a little embarrassed about, only a little. And it's Bachelor Nation. So tonight, actually, this is not by any means an advertisement or promotion. I just realized it sounds like it. Tonight, the new season of The Bachelorette is being aired. So we thought it actually would be a really good time to talk about the show, what's problematic about it, what it highlights, and obviously starting off with the fact that it's gotten a lot of flack recently, rightfully so, for being very heteronormative and also not very racially diverse, not very culturally diverse. They only had one female Black lead, right, in how many seasons?
I think this is going to be like season 24 or something. Maybe like of The Bachelorette. I'm not. There's been a lot, too many.
A lot for many, many, many years, and they're now just having their first Black male lead for The Bachelor this year. So yeah, they're getting a lot of heat for that, rightfully so, because it's super heteronormative to begin with, which is problematic and frustrating, but also really lacking diversity in the cast members and things like that. So that's something right off the bat that we kind of wanted to recognize and acknowledge that also frustrates us. We've had our own conversations about that. And we wanted to start off talking about what's happening kind of right now in Bachelor Nation. And for anyone who has seen the show before or has watched it, I'm new as a fan-ish. I hate calling myself a fan because it feels weird. But yeah, this is probably my third or fourth season into it. Right. But Colton, I think, was actually the first Bachelor that I saw, because I started off, I think, he was on Becca's season, right?
Yes, because I remember I didn't watch Becca's season, and when they were starting Colton as the Bachelor, you were like, you have to watch it. We love him.
I loved him, and now I don't. Definitely do not. And I wasn't alone, and it's so funny because the reason we're talking about this, for anyone who's not familiar, Colton was a cast member on one of the Bachelorette seasons. He made it to the top four. Top four is not weird, but the final four members, and he was a favorite. People really loved him. He was super personable, really sweet, right. And kind of just innocent. Something about him was really cute, and obviously easy on the eyes. And so he was a really big fan favorite. He became the Bachelor, and I was really excited about his season as well. And Cassie, who was the winner, that's the language used in Bachelor Nation, of his season, was my favorite as well in his season. From day one. She was so sweet with the butterflies. I was like, oh my God, and she had a legitimate career, and I was like, yeah, girl. But yeah, so recently, the reason that Sydney and I want to talk about this in Real Talk is because it just came out in the last month or so that Cassie, they broke up a few months ago, I think back in May. And Cassie actually filed for a restraining order against Colton a little less than a month ago. And the news came out that he had planted a tracking device on her car. He was harassing her through text messages, both indirectly and kind of directly with fake numbers, and stalking her, showing up at her place where she lived and her parents' place, to the point, I guess, where she feared for her safety, which is what she was saying. So yeah. So what were your thoughts? Because I know I sent the article to you.
Yes. Yeah.
My partner, for the audience, told me about it, and I was like, I have to text Sydney, and immediately texted you to be like, did you hear this?
And I think I heard from so many people too that was like, did you hear about Colton and Cassie? Did you hear? And I remember being like, what? Because when they first broke up, it seemed pretty amicable. It seemed like they both, they put that stereotypical post of we're ending this relationship out of love and we have nothing but respect for each other. They put the same picture up and whatever, just to speak to the end of the relationship.
Right.
So had me fooled, right, that everything was fine. And I was like, what the heck? This came
Like,
out of
where did it
nowhere.
come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I want to mention too that like we don't have any kind of insider information. Like we're reading about this on Instagram and like articles and things like that, just like everybody else, but we have thoughts and opinions. So that's why we're talking about it. And I remember being really shocked and trying to like pull it apart. Did you watch any of the like Bachelor in Quarantine stuff where they did those interviews?
I saw parts of hers, which
Right.
is where they're not feud, but like there was some tension that started because he got angry that she started speaking, even though it didn't seem like she did,
Yeah.
speaking about the breakup. And then all of a sudden we saw kind of bad blood kind of coming up. And they like unfollowed each other on Instagram and like all that kind of petty stuff.
Right.
But it seemed really like normal. I mean, I hate to put it this way, but normal drama.
Right. Like
That was just like TV personality, whatever, typical, not at all like red flags for abusive behavior or stalking. So I was just as shocked when I saw the news as well.
No, I was definitely shocked. And I think like when I saw like thinking backwards, right, like learning about the restraining order and then being like, oh, maybe that's why it was so weird, why he freaked out that she even spoke on the Bachelor in Quarantine thing, because I watched it and she really didn't say anything. And in fact, made a point to be like, I am not talking about this. Like I explained to you that I'm not, like, we're not doing this.
Right.
And we know, maybe I'm just speculating or assuming, but that like when somebody's trying to leave an abusive relationship, like it is the most dangerous time.
Exactly.
And
even if there was no physical abuse present, which is why I think for some people it might have come as a shock, and why they are still coming to his defense, because in their mind as a viewer, we think we know everything about these people. We don't know anything. We know what the TV producers have shown us. But even if there was no physical abuse present in the duration of the relationship, leaving that relationship is when they're losing that control or, that possession that they see their partner as, and can escalate into stalking or harassment, which we see a lot.
Exactly. And like, who knows what he was doing beforehand that was red flaggy that only she was aware of, or made her feel scared or unsure or whatever, even after they broke up. But like, I think that his response to her speaking on just like, or almost being given a space to speak on the Bachelor in Quarantine thing, like, he reacted in that way of like, oh my gosh, I'm losing control here. And like, who knows what happened if the tracking device happened after that event or not. Like,
right.
I don't know, but it was kind of for me the first indication that I was like, oh, maybe she was like experiencing being controlled for like Lord knows how long. And then I know I started to think back on like the show of like, well, he seemed kind of controlling towards her on the show too, of like, stay here, and his dramatic like, I'm jumping the fence. And like,
right. Well, I mean, the improper terms that we kind of find problematic, but he was obsessed with her. Like, it was at the time watching the show play out, it seemed cute. It seemed charming. Even as someone who watches the show, I was like, I don't see red flags. It was just cute. Like, we're like rooting for her. So we wanted them to be together. So all of his kind of attention going back to her every single time was sweet, because we were like, yeah, they're finding love. But now looking back, it's just red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. Like, he was just so fixated on her, wasn't listening to what she was trying to communicate. He wasn't the best communicator, as it appeared, at least.
Right.
So I can understand the like confusion there with him, but it felt as a viewer very obvious that she wasn't as into him as he was into her, but was kind of, maybe again looking now,
I remember being like, dude, give it a break. Like, she's trying to tell you, like, she doesn't want to do this. She doesn't want to be a part of it. And like, yeah, it was cute. But I remember in that episode where he was like, I sent everybody else home. I want this to just be you and I. Like,
she looked terrified.
Yeah. Like, she's made it so clear that like, she doesn't want this. And like, I think it's really like, it just speaks to the stuff that we see, like, there is always an escalation that gets you somewhere, right? So learning about the fact that like she filed for a restraining order, so many people were like, no way, how the heck could that be true? But like, when you really start to look at it, and like, none of us were in their relationship, so we'll never know what was actually going on.
Exactly.
abuse happens in an escalation, right? We always say if somebody like was physically violent with you on your first date, you're probably going to end it right there. But there's a reason that it doesn't happen until later.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's why when we talk about like healthy relationships and the warning signs, one of the warning signs is intensity. And intensity to some people can be really or look or appear to be really romantic because they're so invested in the relationship and they're just like from 0 to 60, right? Like I'm into you, all of a sudden I want to marry you. Right. And The Bachelor kind of encourages that, right? Because like, or Bachelor Nation encourages that because they're supposed to get engaged by the end of the show. And it's only a couple of months that they know each other and they're dating multiple people, all problematic in a lot of ways. But that intensity is kind of encouraged and made to be really romantic and glorified. But in this case, was potentially dangerous for Cassie, unbeknownst to her, unbeknownst to all the viewers and castmates. So
who knows what she's really going through.
Right. And what she's going through now. I mean, people obviously have their opinions all over social media and are like really defending him and attacking her. And obviously we're just speculating off of what we've read online.
Right.
But, we automatically believe people when they come forward and share this type of thing. So that's why I think we wanted to bring it up here in Real Talk, because I think it's important to like not pass judgment in the sense that, like you said, we're the only two people that were in that relationship were them. We were not there. We can't say what really happened or didn't happen. We can't even say what really happened during the show.
Yeah.
Because of what the producers show.
Yeah. And I think too, what you just said about like, we believe people when they come forward, like that's not just a blanket statement. Like we know how hard it can be for survivors to come forward, even survivors who are never going to be in the public eye. Like,
right.
Restraining orders are things that are really hard to go through, like that whole process.
It's serious. Yeah.
For one, it means you're in serious danger, right? Like it's not easy. And she had to know that it was going to come out and become public. So who would want to do that?
Right.
Just for the attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so we're not just saying like, oh, we believe survivors because like we do, but there's so many reasons why people don't just not tell the truth. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And especially for someone in the public eye, like that, I think it's, there's always, it's tricky and complicated and messy, but it's very rare for people to lie about this type of thing and to put themselves through all of this.
Exactly.
And especially when, their whole relationship has kind of been like, had it, zoomed in, like
incredibly public and intensified across like the country, the world, I don't know.
Right.
And I think we kind of mentioned before, like we didn't see any of those signs until the restraining order happened or that news came out. But there was the other relationship in Bachelor Nation where a lot of people did see signs, and that was Hannah and Luke, like the season after Colton.
Right.
And how abusive Luke's behavior was and how uncomfortable it was. And that was something that as an advocate, I felt it in my bones. Like the first time I ever saw him on the show.
Oh my God. Yeah. I had like shivers.
Yeah. And it was just awful to watch.
It was like, I was watching and I'm like, and I was waiting for, like how on some TV shows, they'll put like a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Either before or after being like, if you are in an abusive relationship, call this hotline or whatever. I was waiting for that because I'm like, how can they not acknowledge the fact that he is so abusive? I mean, he was controlling. He was like
gaslighting, like you can imagine.
Oh, like that's the first time that I saw kind of not a real life example of gaslighting, but just where gaslighting was the term that was really being used to name his behavior. Or name a behavior in such a public way. And that I think was such a good way to show it because he would literally look at her and lie to her face and make her feel crazy for thinking something that was true, but he was twisting into something that wasn't. He would say something to her And then she would like repeat it back to him and he'd be like, oh no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I said. Like,
I was like pulling my hair out. I was like, wait, like how dare he do this? Like,
yeah,
on camera. Like, do we not understand that she could literally go to someone and be like, play back. I
Why?
want to see what just happened. But that's this whole idea of like everything that somebody who is being abusive is doing is so intentional, right? He knew exactly what he was doing and why.
100% with her and with the other guys.
Right. On
He's also like controlling the group dynamic and then using his relationship with her and her trust and her feelings for him to manipulate her to go against the guys that were trying to help her.
Exactly.
Which was infuriating to watch because we're like seeing it so clear as day, but she was in the middle of it and it's hard to recognize it when you're experiencing it.
Yeah. And I think like even at the end, right, she sent him home because he was very like overtly offensive at that one point. And it wasn't this like tactful like dance that he had been playing the whole rest of the time. And that was kind of when she was like, like,
it was like light bulb.
Then he came back and was like, I don't care about like you and your opinions. I want to be here and like that's what matters. And I think their relationship was like this perfect example of like all of these different ways that somebody can be abusive, right? Emotionally, psychologically, mentally, spiritually. Like he was doing an incredible job of like being like this wonderful
showing all the possible red flags, all the things you don't want in a partner would be it.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because I know that like, you know, we talk about how the producers manipulate what we're seeing. So to a degree, I can understand why people were like, we're not seeing the whole story, you know, like we're not seeing everything that's happening, so we can't be so quick to judge him. But it didn't even matter because it wasn't taking anything out of context. It was seeing exactly as it was and watching it play out in multiple different scenarios. Like there was no excuse for his behavior at any time. And especially, the last time, that was my favorite moment when she took the podium and moved it because he refused to leave. Like, but that was a clear example of, I'm going to completely disrespect you and your boundaries because I'm only caring about me and what I want, for making it seem like I care about you and us.
Picture of that, it's like you that matters.
And she's like, listen to the words I am saying. I don't want to be with you. And he just wouldn't let it go. And I mean, it's not, looking back, like you were saying, comparing kind of this very in your face abuse versus the way that Colton and Cassie ended. And of course, we don't know what existed in the relationship. You know, she has come out to say like, the relationship was good. We want to honor and respect that. It's the ending that, you know, felt scary and unsafe or uncomfortable or whatever it may be. But we don't know. Maybe there were tons of red flags. And obviously, like we said, looking back, there were tons that we saw of his kind of obsessive, possessive behavior. He really saw her as like a prize that he won, or it seemed that way. And that when he lost her, it was like everything, which is scary.
Exactly. And I think that like, I just wanted to mention this idea of like when we were watching like Luke and Hannah do whatever it was that they were doing, I heard a couple people like in my life having conversations about like, why is she keeping him there? Like, what is she doing? Why is this happening? Which is like this weird version of like, why do they stay in an abusive relationship? And like, remember trying to deconstruct that conversation with the people in my life and stopping myself from asking it too about like, oh my God, just send him home. Like, what are you doing? But there's, you know, 1,000 reasons why people stay. And that's a whole nother episode. But I think I wanted to just like, kind of like touch on that. But I think too, like a lot of what we were talking about in preparing for this conversation today is like this idea that abuse knows no bounds, like at all. Anyone can be a victim. Anyone can be an offender, like socioeconomic status, race, gender identity, sexual orientation, like it doesn't matter. And it's important to not think like, oh, because they're famous or, oh, because they're in the public, like they're not experiencing that, or that they would have the resources or the know-how to like stop it before it happens. And obviously not place blame on people for saying or reaching out or asking for help. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. I think that's why I think it's cool that we brought this, I think, to Real Talk, because I mean, maybe if people don't watch the show, they don't really know what we're talking about specifically, but the themes of what we're talking about are things we hear about every day. And yet when people are in the public eye, they have, sometimes people like viewers have a different image of what abuse should look like or does look like. But yeah, it can transcend any background or, you know, type of person. And like, it should be taken seriously and should be acknowledged anytime or anywhere that we're seeing it, whether it's in a reality TV show, a movie, a fictional story, cartoon, you know, whatever it is.
Or Instagram, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Anytime we're seeing abusive behavior, it's important to call it out. So, yeah, I'm glad we talked about this today, and especially because, you know, gearing up for this coming season to see what's happening.
So, yeah, definitely. And Cara and I will be watching the coming season. If anybody wants to talk about it with us, like, we're here. We won't be talking about Bachelor Nation on every episode of Real Talk, but for today, if you have any thoughts, questions, or reactions to what we discussed, or want to share your thoughts on the whole thing, or if you would like to connect with us for any reason, you can reach us via email or phone. My email is sydney.t@wcogd.org or trezas@wcsu.edu. And Cara's is cara.m@wcogd.org or macklerc@wcsu.edu. And our office phone number is 203-837-3939. Remember, these episodes are all recorded and will be available to view on IGTV, YouTube, and Facebook. You can find us on Instagram at WCOGD_on-campus and Facebook on the Women's Center on campus, where the YouTube link will also be available. Please share this with your friends. Let us know your thoughts and stay tuned for next week's episode. Thanks for listening to us talk about The Bachelor for a little while.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.